I think it is beginning to turn heads. If you look at the 3-year moving average, Bitcoin has gone up every year. And I think it's just becoming undeniable that it is a force that especially now that institutions have to consider it. We showed the correlations of returns. The correlations with other assets, still very low. It's absolutely essential that institutional asset allocators take a look at this asset.
캐시우드는 미국의 유명한 투자자이자 아크인베스트의 CEO입니다. 그녀는 혁신적인 기술 기업에 집중 투자하는 전략으로 잘 알려져 있어요. 전통적인 투자 방식과는 다른 미래지향적 투자의 상징 같은 인물이죠. 장기적인 관점에서 미래 산업에 집중 투자를 하며 폭발적인 수익률을 올리기도 했습니다. 2030년까지 비트코인이 100만 달러 이상 가능하다는 전망을 내놓았던 그녀가 최근에도 비슷한 장기 전망을 얘기하고 있습니다.
2014, I think it was.
Yes.
You put Bitcoin into your portfolio.
Well, 2014 was our first blog. 2015 was our first white paper. And we put, we gave our clients exposure to Bitcoin, GBTC at the time, the only thing we could use. In 2015, between $200 and $250.
All right.
Oh, by the way, we faced so much resistance.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Explain what the reaction was.
No, from everyone, including, we had to ask permission. We had to ask the New York Stock Exchange permission to put it in. I don't know all the rules and regs, but they said, okay, yes, but only 1% of the portfolio. But they didn't tell us that we had to sell it if it went higher. So we just never sold it until the end of 2017, where other regulations and the pushback from traditional financial service really hit. We were scaling our business, meaning our ETF business, which is all around all kinds of disruptive innovation. And so, boom, but we were not getting on platforms like Merrill, Morgan Stanley, and others because our flagship had Bitcoin in it. And so we then decided, okay, we're going to keep it in next generation internet, but flagship right at the top, $20,000. Better lucky than smart.
You every year put out a big ideas list, and it's all the things that you guys think are going to be important for the next year, but also you highlight a lot of innovative technologies. And I think why you are so loved is because you're constantly thinking about where the world is going and which technologies are going to play a big part there. Bitcoin has been one of those technologies for a long time, but it is not operating in a vacuum. We now are seeing things like artificial intelligence and humanoid robots, even self-driving cars. And it feels like when I read the big ideas and listen to you talk, these things are all coming together. And so talk a little bit as to how you see Bitcoin's role in maybe the broader innovative technology bucket and how these things will all kind of work in unison as we kind of build the future.
Yes. One other pushback we got, just to say, when we first put it in, we were kind of new to the business, and the most famous ETF publication of the time made fun of us, saying, yeah, great marketing gimmick. And my answer to that was, great. They have no idea what this is. They have no idea. Anyway, yes. So we just put out earlier this month something called Big Ideas 2025. And we've become fascinated with the convergences among all of the technologies around which we have centered our research. So we've centered our research around the 5 major innovation platforms evolving today. So, as you said, Anthony, robotics, energy storage, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and multi-omic sequencing in the life science space. AI, if you look at the convergence chart in that deck and compare it to the one we put in last year, what you see are the convergences are intensifying with AI, really the heartbeat of convergence, pushing everything along and accelerating the pace of change, and also accelerating the deflationary undercurrents. And I know this is very controversial, but accelerating the deflationary undercurrents that we believe are going to intensify. Deflation, not bad deflation, good deflation. When you cut prices, you enable more access, right? So if you look at the convergence chart, we've focused, of course, on blockchain technologies and agentic AI.
How do you think about Bitcoin from a portfolio standpoint? If it continues to compound at 60% year after year after year after year, is every Wall Street investor just eventually have to throw their hands up and say, I can't beat this thing. I got to buy it? Like how does that play into an investment community that, billions of dollars is spent on salaries and offices and research and all this stuff, and Bitcoin just continues to outperform them?
So again, in Big Ideas 2025, I guess I'm promoting that quite a bit, but there is a page where we're talking to traditional financial services, and I don't know if you're referencing this, but we list the assets and their compound annual rate of return over the last 5 years, all of the major assets. And I think it is beginning to turn heads because, if you look at I think it's not even the 4-year moving average, which would capture the cycle, but the 3-year moving average. Bitcoin has gone up every year if you're using a 3-year moving average. And I think it's just becoming undeniable that it is a force that especially now that institutions have to consider it as a new asset class, because we've also put out there, I actually put it out in 2016, Bitcoin ringing the bell for a new asset class. We showed the correlations of returns. The correlations still, even though traditional investors are getting involved, the correlations with other assets still very low. It's absolutely essential that institutional asset allocators take a look at this asset. If they don't, they're not doing their fiduciary responsibility. So we're trying to help ease them, provide a bridge. Okay, we're talking your language. Bitcoin is not only a technology, it's not only one of the biggest ideas ever, the global monetary system, rules-based, digital, private, all of that, but it is a new asset class. And when you present investors with those three and they're not knowledgeable enough, it's a little bit threatening, or they feel a bit vulnerable. So we are trying to bridge in with, okay, we're going to talk your language. You need to look at this new asset class.
It's not operating in a vacuum. There is a global macro world. There is trade wars. We saw today Zelensky
did you see?
And Trump. I don't know if anyone has seen yet, but President Trump and Vice President Vance essentially, called Zelensky into the principal's office and in front of the media, told him, knock it off.
Took him to the woodshed. That's a good Reagan expression. Took him to the woodshed in front of all the world to see.
And so as that's happening, let's just say that there's maybe two major themes. There is the global macro world, which is global liquidity and interest rate and policy decisions and all that, overlaid with uncertainty, maybe is the best way to do it, right? And I think that there's a lot of people blaming the recent price action on Bitcoin and all that on some of that uncertainty. But how do you see Bitcoin's future if we have a world where Doge is cutting government spending, if we have a world where these trade wars are playing out? Like how does your analysis of Bitcoin change?
And if we have a world, which we believe we've entered, where 5 major innovation platforms involving 15 technologies are converging and disrupting the entire traditional world order. Well, what in that world? Now, I'm very confident in our research and in our projections, but if I'm someone who doesn't do what I do all day long, and I'm studying all the ways to hedge against, all the uncertainties out there, ground shifting underneath us technologically, geopolitically. What is the one thing I am certain about? I am certain about 21 million units. I am certain about that. And I think we're going back to the glory years. I think deregulation, I think on monetary policy, I do believe that one of the reasons Trump has become such a fan is, it's good competition for the dollar. And he wants that. He wants, monetary policy to be influenced by it. I don't think he wants the dollar to go away, and I don't think it will. But I think we're going to have, Bitcoin and the dollar as the two sort of reserve currencies out there.
The last thing I want to talk about is the strategic Bitcoin reserve. There are people in this room that are salivating over the idea that they got to front run the United States of America and every other country to buy Bitcoin. And they think that when the United States, when not if, finally capitulates and buys Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin will look like a vertical line straight up. Forget the price impact for a second, but what do you think the odds of a strategic Bitcoin reserve are, let's say, this year?
This year, again, it's a high priority. I think this this issue became a one-issue voter issue, right? And the president is going to make good on his promise because this really helped bring in the young people, and so. I do, and Senator Lummis has done, I heard she was here, but she's done an amazing job. She's an incredible staff. So I do think it will happen. Now, I know there are controversies out there. There are truly some, the confiscation of some Bitcoin. That was truly illicit and criminal and all of that. There are questions about others. And then there's the other question is, wait a minute, are you really then going to get all the way up to 1 million Bitcoin? How do you do that? How do you fund it? Well, our gold is at cost on our balance sheet. Land is at cost. I learned from Senator Lummis that a third of the land in the United States and 50% in Wyoming is on our country's balance sheets at cost. Think about that. We could sell a little bit off, and we could definitely, and same with gold.
Do you think that countries will sell some of their gold to buy Bitcoin, or do you think that this is an additive thing?
I don't know the answer to that, but as they're scraping around looking for alternatives, it becomes a diversifier, I think, because even relative to gold, Bitcoin is a diversifier. The correlations are a little higher than to other assets, but still not quite there. There was something, the other thing I learned today was that there are 50 bills going through 22 states right now around Bitcoin reserves. So that's very interesting. Texas, Arizona, and Utah, I think, have seen progress within the last week, which is very exciting because Texas and California, each of those states, is bigger than Canada. And of course, Canada is huge in terms of a gold resource base.
결국 캐시우드는 비트코인이 단순한 기술을 넘어 새로운 자산군이자 미래의 기축 자산으로 자리 잡고 있다고 확신합니다. 3년 이동 평균 기준으로 매년 상승해온 수익률, 다른 자산과의 낮은 상관관계, 그리고 2100만 개로 제한된 공급량은 비트코인이 불확실성의 시대에 확실한 가치를 제공하는 자산임을 뒷받침한다는 거예요. 또한 글로벌 유동성, 금리 정책, 무역 전쟁 등 불확실성이 커지는 상황에서 비트코인이 훌륭한 해지 수단이 될 수 있다고 주장합니다. 마지막으로 미국이 결국 비트코인을 매수할 것이라고 예측하며 국가 전략 비트코인 보유 가능성을 높게 보고 있습니다. 비트코인은 더 이상 선택이 아닌 필수이며 미래 자산 포트폴리오의 핵심이 될 것이라는 것이 캐시우드의 일관된 메시지입니다. 메시지입니다. 여러분들은 어떻게 생각하시나요? 우리는 객관적인 시각으로 투자를 해야 하고 지금 당장만 보고 투자할 게 아니라 미래를 보고 투자를 해야겠죠. 010-2472-0429 전화번호로 탈개미 적어서 문자 보내주시면 2025년 비트코인과 코인 시장에 대한 분석, 정보들 공유해드리겠습니다. 현재 우리에게 중요한 것은 이러한 정보를 어떻게 활용할 것인가입니다. 지금까지 영상 시청해주셔서 감사하고요. 다음에 더 좋은 영상으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.